Mrs. Glosson, you still haven't cleaned your desk off. So I'm going to tell you right now, it's not about cleaning your desk, but, and I'm not, I'll say right away, I'm not a Pinterest person, although I love walking through the hall here. I just glanced as I was on my way to try to find the restroom at all the beautiful, crafty rooms that I saw. And mine is not cluttered, but I'll just say I'm not someone who spends a lot of time on Pinterest. So basically today, what I want to talk about is the nuts and bolts, things that if you have these routines in place will help you to help your students have a great year. You'll be able to focus on your students, your classroom will be more peaceful, and you will be able to focus on the learning that's taking place instead of taking care of all these little details. And where do we see truth and beauty and goodness in God's Word? We see order in creation, and I teach second grade, so a lot of these references for me are things that I have taught. We see order in the 7 days of creation, in the law, that the Ten Commandments, and also all the other guidelines that God gave Moses for building the tabernacle and for the Levitical priesthood. We see order in Jewish law and in the early church. And 1 Corinthians says, let all things be done decently and in order. And I don't want to take that out of context, but I know that God is a God of order. And that's one of our character qualities that we really build on at classical school. So I wasn't sure whether to put this slide at the beginning or the end of my presentation, but it's almost like the Dunkin' Donuts commercial. It's time to make the donuts. I made the donuts. You know, it's time to start the year. At the end of the year, it's time to start the new year. So we're approaching May, and these are the types of things we look at the end of the year. Giving a suggested class list or split. We have 2 sections. Some of you have 1 section, some of you have more than 2 sections, but as teachers we come together and we talk about who we think should be put together as a class for the next year, and we make that recommendation to the administration. And then our promotion and retention forms. We do our curriculum. In fact, they just asked for our curriculum inventory and order so that they could be ready to make that order in May for the following year. School supply lists, field trips, think ahead, plan those ahead, assignment books, workbooks, tests copied and assembled. Those are all tasks to think about at the end of this school year as you prepare for next school year. And then during the summer, think about what you want to do as far as orienting your parents for your classroom. Do you want to include the things that we talked about back here, the field trips, assignment books, workbooks, those types of things. You want to communicate to your parents what you will be doing and throughout the whole year. And we use, and I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself, but we use a parent handbook, and it has all of our contact information and everything we want to communicate to parents that they can have as a ready reference. We put our memorization in there for the year. We put a list of suggested books that we would have their children read for home reading, those types of things. And then we start with a grammar school curriculum guide to guide us in our lesson planning. That's part of our ACCS accreditation, and we use that then to prepare a year at a glance. These are some, I will say, some procedures that we developed back in 2008 as a almost brand new school. We'd been in session for 2 years at that point, and we came together as a grammar class staff and decided we want to be consistent across the grades. So we put these things in place, and I will say, and Naphtali can attest to this, as we have added staff and added classes, we have not been consistent in continuing that. We've had several administration changes that, so we have not made that consistent, but we are returning to have this consistent across the grades for K through 6. From those years, at a glance, we moved to weekly lesson plans and then a daily schedule. So at back-to-school orientation, you would think about things like field trip dates, and you would already have those scheduled in September for the entire year. Classroom feasts, or things that you would bring your families together for a special meal. We do literature-themed boxcar children in 2nd grade. We just had a little house feast at Valentine's Day with Valentine's-themed boxes. And special projects. In 2nd grade, we do a salt dough relief map, a sugar cube pyramid, chicken leg mummy, and Valentine's-themed boxes. And then you would think about special days that you would have throughout the year. Our 5th grade just completed a wax museum for the colonial period. It was excellent. 4th grade does a special Reformation Day where they have different stations. They nail the theses on the door and do all kinds of fun things to commemorate the Reformation. Ancient Egypt Day in 2nd grade at the end of the year. Special visitors, and naturalists come. We read the book Owls in the Family, and we had a naturalist bring an owl to our classroom and talk about that. 1st grade brings in a bug lady with all kinds of interesting bugs and a fireman. So you would think about all the different special visitors and use that time to communicate that to your parents. And then any special programs throughout the year. Your class might put on a play. We, in 2nd grade, have put on a couple different plays through the years. Liberal arts night, choir concerts. Those are the types of things to keep in mind as you're preparing for back to school. So here's an example of our curriculum guide. For each subject, you would list the textbooks, the objectives, the things that they should have learned, prerequisites prior to coming to your grade, the new objectives that you want to teach through the year, and then the methods that you will use to teach it, and then the approximate time. And this was modeled after, I believe, Logos School curriculum guide, but we put all of our information in specific to the way we teach. And this is an example of the first quarter of Year at a Glance. Just lines out every week. I have 4 pages for one for each quarter, and then we use that to build our lesson plans. So here's an example of the way I do my lesson plans. It's modeled after our assignment books. And I just use the same template and plug in my lesson plans. And when I want to be more detailed, I use this outline, which is the 7 laws, and helps me to think about how I'm going to approach each part of that lesson with the 7 laws. This is an example of my daily and weekly schedule. I put the weekly schedule in the parent handbook, and then the daily schedule is a large I think I have it on legal size paper, but you could put it on even larger, 11 by 17 for the classroom. And then there's a student in my class that switches that schedule every day so that the class can be on track with where we are in our day, instead of asking me, what's next, Mrs. Glosson? I try to follow that pretty religiously. I find that primary grade students especially are creatures that need routine, especially the restroom breaks and those types of things. And so I really do try to follow the schedule as closely as I can. And then at the beginning of the year, these are the types of things that you would share. Your assignment book, classroom and your parent handbook, and then email and newsletter communication. And I am just now in the process of looking at MailChimp, which is a way that you can communicate. Our school uses that for its weekly newsletters. How many of you have an electronic newsletter that you send out? Does anybody? What do you use?
Oh, I'm sorry, our office sends it out.
Your office?
On an individual basis, the school does it.
The school news, yes. We have a weekly school newsletter, but I'm trying to develop a consistent way, and I have in the past had a format, but it's not something that's easily accessible on like someone's cell phone or that type of thing. So MailChimp is one that our school uses for the all-school newsletter, and you can customize it to make a personalized classroom newsletter as well. It works on your phone, yes. And let me just pull up, or Naftali, can you pull up our school newsletter and just kind of pass it around or walk it around? What was I going to say? So yeah, there are templates for MailChimp actually on Teachers Pay Teachers. I'm going to develop my own and my own graphics. We have a graphics person at our school that does some great jobs with developing like a header and that type of thing. So I wanted mine to be Egyptian themed since I am teaching that in second grade. But there's a lot of possibilities with that, and it is available on your cell phone very easily and readable. So at our school, and I have some examples up here, I brought show and tell. We have assignment books. We have a large classroom poster that also looks like our assignment book that we print and make available for the students. And every Monday, or the teachers sometimes do it day by day. I do mine on Monday for the entire week. They take about 15 to 20 minutes and copy it into their assignment book. They know when our tests are coming up. They know what to expect for the lessons that we're going to be presenting and the homework that's going to be expected. And then at the end of the week, there's a place for the parents to sign it. I don't see that on here, but it's actually in the assignment book. Could you, I don't want to walk across I guess I could go this way. I'll just grab this. I'll pass these around. We have a little bit different format for the lower school, for the K through first and second grade. K doesn't do it. And then we have a different format for third grade and through sixth grade. This is the third through sixth grade one. They have more subjects. This is a great way to communicate with parents, and I actually use my assignment book also for home reading requirements. So the students read 20 minutes per evening, and they write it in their assignment book for each day, and it's easy for me to check it then and put it in the grade book because I use that as part of their grade. And then at the end of the week, parents sign it. If there was a lesson that wasn't turned in for homework, we highlight it. The parents see that at the end of the week. The student turns it in. The teacher will initial that it has been completed and turned in. And it's just great for a hard copy reference between the parents and the teachers.
And Lisa, if I may add on to that, that is placed in our school, which I love, instead of like pink slips for discipline or behavior, if we have a discipline issue, we use a clipboard system, we write it and we write the reason that this is when teacher did not stay properly or, was caught cheating. So we write that in there. Of course, if it's severe, we email, but it's nice also to go back if you ever get a question as a parent, like, why did you have to sit on the wall these 10 minutes? On Monday, it's a great place to look back because with little pink slips, they get lost, and that keeps it, and they keep that agenda in their desks every day at school. They take it home every day, so it's just a really handy reference. I really love that.
Yes, and I have another slide that talks about that, but I'll pass this around. This is our clipboard that she was talking about. Here's another alternate assignment board. I took a picture of this from our 3rd grade teacher, and when I told her about it, she said, "Oh, I got that from School of the Ozarks." So good on you guys. It's just decorative tape to create that grid that looks just like the assignment book, and it's on the whiteboard. Here's a picture of my 2nd grade handbook, and I'll pass some of those around too from the years. That one is quite a bit thinner than what we started out with. I used to include a lot more information, and then I stopped putting as much in, but you guys can look at these, pass them around. One of the things I used to include was our spelling lists for the entire year. And then as I got to talking with the author of our spelling program, she said, number 1, it's copyrighted. You don't have permission to do that. Number 2, that's not the way it was intended to be used. You want the students to be given a little at a time and not the entire year's list. So I stopped putting that in. I still put our scripture memory in and our home reading, but there are some other things that I've taken out over the years, and it has slimmed down. So I use alphanumeric order in my classroom to track work. I use it for mailboxes, coat hooks, cubbies, for our job chart. And I pass out their like literature books, their grammar books, the things that are non-consumable. I number those so that I can keep track of which student has which book and make sure that we get them turned in. So here's a couple different examples. The one on the left is my filing system. It's just a set of cardboard mailboxes. The one on the right is another example from our 3rd grade teacher. And this is the class spreadsheet, and I use it for many different things. I check off their memory work before I put it in the online grade book. I check in their daily assignments and their graded work before putting it in online. I cut this little section out and post it by the mailboxes, by the coat hooks, by the front board where I need to know for daily leader, student of the day. So it just is used for a variety of things. I make probably 50 to 100 copies of it at the beginning of the year and just pull one as I need it. I use organization charts. By the coat hooks, I put a morning routine, what I expect them to do when they come in with their backpack. Hang up their backpack, take their folders out, put their homework in the corner of their desk so I can check it to make sure that they've turned it in. Get a couple pencils, sit down, and start on their homework or their handwriting. So those are just my bell work activities that I expect them to do every morning. behavior standards and character standards. These are part of our, what am I trying to say? Part of our grade card. So we also emphasize how we want them to behave, how we want their character to be. And we've actually just had some discussions about whether or not to reward students or whether we want to build that character. Talk about what your response was on that when we had our staff discussion.
Well, and I will talk about, tomorrow I will talk about this, but instead of, and I'm sure I picked this up at PCA when I was there from one of the teachers, but what I like to do for rewards, instead of doing individual, since it can become very expensive and just doing good behavior, I do a marble jar, and it's for taking away individual and working as a team, so it's more of a team building effort, and so when they fill that jar, and I do not reward and put marbles in the jar for just standard obedience or standard good behavior. It has to be, I saw you guys really working together and helping each other out, and I saw some really, good camaraderie. And then when the jar is filled, which only happens about once a quarter, I throw my class a party. So I bring in donuts or cupcakes, and we celebrate kind of as a whole class instead of individual rewards.
Do you ever take marbles out of the jar?
Yes, so if we have trouble in the bathrooms, having self-control, or crooked lines to the hall, that's how they can lose marbles. Again, it's kind of as a team. I don't take marbles for just individual. Try not to. That would be more fun.
Are there repercussions when you take a marble out of a jar?
Longer to fill. They want their party.
Okay, okay. So class jobs is another chart. Clever connections. I'll talk about each one of these individually. And then use your time wisely is another chart that I have. So my morning routine again is, as you know, you see up here, hang your backpack, your jacket, your lunch box. We train them to have a clean area underneath the coat hook so that they're not just throwing their jackets in their backpacks. Take their folders and their assignments out, place their homework on their desk, get 2 sharp pencils, 1 red pencil, and work at their desk. Behavior standards, stay in your seat, common to all of our classrooms, I'm sure. Don't talk when the teacher is talking. Raise your hand to speak. Speaking of self-control type of items, stand to speak, stand to greet visitors. And Naphtali started this line chant, speedy, straight, and silent. And I like that because it tells the student exactly the way you want them to behave. You want them to be speedy to get in line, stand up straight in the line, and walk straight in the line, and then walk silently as we're passing through the halls. Character standards are related to the behavior as well. Obey promptly, exercise diligence in work, display consideration, kindness, and compassion. And we have scripture references to go with each one of these. And our 3rd grade teacher actually has them posted on her door. And I believe her class actually memorizes the verses that go with each of these character standards. Speak with honesty and edification, exercise self-control, and display order. And there's an example of our clipboard, and Naphtali was telling you how we use it. We give a verbal warning, and then for my class, the second verbal warning, their clip would be moved to blue, and they would lose 5 minutes of recess time. Third reprimand, their clip is moved to yellow, and they lose 15 minutes of recess time. And then their additional reprimand or specific circumstances that are named in our handbook, it would move to red, and they would have an office visit. An example of being moved immediately to red would be dishonesty. If you ask a student point blank and they lie to you immediately. So that would be your discretion, but I have taken students immediately to the office, and I have said if that ever happens again, you'll go immediately to the office. So, but I've put them on red. Class jobs I'll move, let's see, to this one first and then go back to the other one. This is an example of our third grade class. And I have never actually had a pretty looking Pinterest-worthy job chart like that, but I want to. And so I took a picture of hers, and it had some cute little job names on there, like engineer, electrician is the one that turns off the lights, and those types of things. So I went back and I said, okay, I've got to come up with some cute names for jobs. So I have doorkeeper, caboose, maid or butler. I have one of those little stick push vacs that's non-electric, a wiper, a board president to clean the boards, the pencil pusher, sanitation engineer, a postman, a librarian, and a chairman or chairwoman. I guess I could say chairperson. So anyway, that's just some cute little ideas. But they learn to serve, and they love to serve. I have used this both as a service activity or a reward system in the past. So every time, for example, they would do their chore, they would get a tally mark. When they got 5 tally marks, they would get a reward. That's an individual personal reward, and I gave out lollipops. But I'm rethinking that after our discussion recently, and I think it is very important for them to work together as a team, serve one another. And I've seen, even before we had this discussion, I've seen the benefits of developing that servant attitude and that servant character. I have students in my class, if a student can't find their particular book, there will be a neighbor that will say, let me help you. Or if everything's falling out of a desk, the other student will say, let me help you organize your desk. And those are the types of attitudes we want to foster. So, clever connections. I came up with this actually last year. We talk about how all of our subjects are tied together and that one is part of the other. So we study poetry at the beginning of the year, and as we go throughout the rest of the year, I ask them to look for, in the hallway or in our daily classwork, alliteration, and these other poetry elements. Alliteration is very easy for them to find, and it's interesting when they make those connections. In 4th grade, as they read one of the Chronicles of Narnia recently, she put several different things on her bulletin board as we walked down the hall, and I asked the students, okay, take a look at what she's adding every day and see if you can make the connection on this one. And it took them a while because it had been a while since we had studied alliteration. But finally, one of them came up to me one day and said, is that alliteration? I said, yes. So it's great to get them thinking through the year. A spelling word that they spell correctly on their Bible test that we've actually had as a spelling word, or in composition, a spelling rule, correct spellings of our Bible words. We have some difficult ones, Pharaoh, and Caesar, those types of things. Vocabulary, with spelling, I always pull in homophones, homonyms, the different multiple meanings of words. So I ask them to give me that information. I don't give it to them. Don't give them anything that they can give you, right? So new words that are connected to other subjects, multiple meanings, parts of speech. That is a great one. When you're talking about spelling words and a word that sounds the same but has a different meaning, those parts of speech are important. And when you can pull that in from grammar, synonyms, antonyms, all of those things are connections that they can make. Math. Right now we're learning how to make change to $1. When we were learning telling time to the minute, I was still rewarding a tally mark for that. And so if they could come up and tell me what the time was to the exact minute, they could get a tally mark toward their lollipop. So use your time wisely. I have students who finish early. In fact, they kind of race one another to finish early. And so I came up with this chart of different ideas that they could do, and I don't want it to be something that I have to grade. So they can work on their memory verse, write in their journal, work ahead on their homework. I allow them to do like side B of their math if they have free time, those types of things. Help a friend that's struggling with their work. I do allow peer tutoring. There are some students that are well able to explain to their peers exactly what's going on and help them to make those connections in math and in grammar. Practice their math facts. We're into times right now and soon to be into division. So those are the types of things that I encourage them to do if they have free time. And then planning the beginning of the year. We came up, and I'll give all credit. Is anyone here from Whitfield Academy in Kansas City? We visited Whitfield in October, and I told my co-teacher, we have 2 second grade teachers, when she started in 2014, I said every year I add something different. I said I've been here since 2006, and I always glean and pull in new things, new ideas. Well, the idea that I brought from Whitfield was a history and Bible workbook. And we used the Veritas cards. But they copy the Veritas worksheets and bind them as a spiral workbook up at the top so that the kids are flipping, and it's all there for the entire year. So here's a picture of that. And I came back, and within a week I had that done, and now we're implementing it throughout the grammar school. We did the same thing with cursive workbook. But in the summer, I build my files for the tests, the workbooks, the worksheets, and then filing math worksheets, which come already printed. Here's the cursive workbook. And if anybody is wondering, this is Danielian or modern cursive, and educationalfontware.com is where I got this. They also have, if anyone uses Spell to write and read, they have Cursive First font. They have every font you can think of. They have Zahner Bloser and all of the popular fonts, as well as some foreign fonts that are used in South Africa and New Zealand and Australia.
And what was the name of that?
Educationalfontware.com. It's actually a home-based business, and I originally bought, I think it was a $50 site license to be able to use as an individual. And then our school decided to buy it. It was like $300 so that all the teachers could load it on their home and their school computers. And they refunded my $50. They said, if your school buys it, we will refund. So, and they are very friendly. When I got the refund check, it was just a little check, It's a home-based business in Washington, and they are the most friendly people to work with. And very up-to-date on the different operating systems, and they update their software as well. So at the beginning of the year, we take time and have the students label their homework folders. I use a blue vinyl folder for homework. I can't remember the name of it now. It's escaping me, but I like a particular kind of notebook or folder because it's heavier duty, And so I request that on my school supply list. Not all students come with that. Some of them come with a paper folder that falls apart after the first month. But we label our folders for leave home papers, take home, and for return to school homework papers. And in the middle of that, sorry, I'm going to have to get a throat lozenge, I think. We put notebook paper, and I got this idea also from Whitfield because I did it a little bit differently before. I actually gave them the spelling list. Do you have one? Thank you so much. Their home spelling log goes in the center of that, and it's just notebook paper. And as we enter our spelling words into our learning log, we use spell to write and read. And as we put the words in the learning log, they also are writing it in their home log, so they have the list to take home with them. At the bottom of their home spelling log, when we're finished with the list, they write their spelling sentence. And after I've checked it in their home log and had them make corrections, then they will enter it into their learning log. So they're coming up with their own original sentences. And I never really had a good way to do that until this year, because now they can write it and have a chance to make the corrections before they recopy it into their learning log. We use the purple folder for our history and Bible. I bind their memory scripture in that. In second grade, we memorize Hebrews 11, the entire chapter, and the first couple of verses of chapter 12. So we're working on that the entire year. Their memory songs are also bound in the center of their purple folder, so they have ready reference as we sing those songs. Their green folder we use for literature, composition, and grammar. And in that, in the center, I put notebook paper, and we use that for their journal. And then we have their math folder, which is a cardboard folder from Saxon. Now these student records are records that the individual teacher keeps in the classroom. The office has a school record as well and a file on each student. But in my classroom, I have a file that gets passed to the next teacher, and it's been passed to me from the first grade teacher and passed to her from the kindergarten teacher. So you have kind of a running record of that student's progress through the years. So we keep their grade report card in that folder. We keep any notes regarding parent-teacher conferences, examples of student work, those types of things are kept in that folder, and a student information form, which gives us information about any allergies that they might have or any special needs that they might have, who can pick the child up, that type of thing. So the grade book and the report card. Benchmark testing is something that I'll touch on, and then how to interpret standardized tests in the spring. So here's an example of our information form. Name of babysitter is one of the things it has on it. Health information, vision problems, any other things that the parents want us to know personally about their child. What will your child be called if they have a nickname that they call them instead of their formal name? These are the types of testing that I keep track of. I try to take a look at the spring testing that was done the year before and report to parents at the fall parent-teacher conference. I do a San Diego quick assessment, which is a word recognition test to give me an idea of where the child is with reading, what grade level, can they read independently, what's their instructional level, what's their frustration level. DIBELS is a test of reading fluency, and it tells how many words per minute that child is able to fluently read, and then also measures their ability to retell the story. Spell to Write and Read has a diagnostic spelling test, which gives us a grade level. I also give them 2 different tests on our phonograms, our phonics, an encoding test where they listen and write, and then another one, a decoding test where they look and tell me what it is from auditory memory. Both of those are important, and they oftentimes have a vastly different score based on the child's ability to remember and the child's ability to listen and hear.